Hola estudiantes, este video es para hablar sobre dos verbos en español, el verbo ser y el verbo estar. So usually we get confused with these two verbs because they have the same meaning. These are two irregular verbs. Like I mentioned before, we are going to discuss the verb ser and the verb estar. So people usually get confused between these two verbs because they mean exactly the same. And we are going to be looking at this picture in which we can see the different conjugations of ser and estar. So as I previously mentioned, we are going to have the verb ser and estar, which both mean to be in English. So if you want to think about the correspondent verb in English, it would be to be. So for these both cases, the verb is either ser or estar, and the only difference we are going to have is that we use them in different situations. So they do have different conjugations, like we can see in this picture. For the verb ser, we have yo soy, tú eres, él es, ella es, nosotros somos, ustedes son, ellos, ellas son. Y para el verbo estar, yo estoy, tú estás, él está, ella está, nosotros estamos, ustedes están, ellos están, ellas están. As we previously saw in that picture, we have different conjugations for the two verbs, although they mean exactly the same. So then again, if we want to think about the English form for these two conjugations, it is going to be the same for this and for this side. So if we think about yo soy, yo estoy, it means I am. Tú eres, tú estás, you are. Él es or él está, he is. Ella es, ella está, she is. Nosotros somos, nosotros estamos, or the female version, nosotras somos, nosotras estamos, means we are. Ustedes son, or ustedes están. Ellos son, or ellos están. Ellas son, or ellas están. So as you can see, so far we have the same conjugation, but we are going to get into how to know or when should we use this, because the different use of these two verbs, even though they mean the same, the use is not interchangeable. So we cannot use the same verb for the same purposes. We have different purposes and different situations in which we are going to use those two verbs. Let's look at the different picture that we have coming up. So in this picture, we can see that we have the different situations in which we are going to use the verb ser and the verb estar. And actually, if you look at the acronym at the beginning of each of the situations, we are going to have a word. We're going to have the word doctor for ser, and we are going to have the word place for estar. That means that we are going to use these two verbs in different situations. So I like to think about the verb ser as a more permanent or long-lasting characteristic of the person that we're describing, or of the thing, in general of the noun. On the other hand, we have the verb estar, which I like to associate with temporary situations, temporary characteristics of that same noun, okay? So on the verb ser, we have doctor, obviously in Spanish, doctor. We have a description, we have occupation, we have characteristics, we have time or date, we have origin, and we also have relationships. So what does that mean? When we describe all of these things, we are going to use the verb ser. When we talk about how a person looks like, that is describing that person or that noun. That is going to be the description. when we talk about the occupation. So occupations is something more long-lasting, so more permanent, characteristic of the noun, so we're going to use the verb ser as well. We're talking about characteristics, then it's going to be the same thing. Then we're talking about the time and the date. So even though time and date is not permanent, that is the way, or that is the verb that we are going to be using in Spanish. Origin, where you are from. That is something we can't change, or something that is permanent or long lasting in the description or essence of the noun. So that is going to go with ser as well. Then we have relationships. When you talk about your friends, or when you talk about your sister, your brother, your mother, those are things or relationships that we can change, right? So you are my sister, tú eres mi hermana. Él es mi amigo, he is my friend. On the side of the verb estar, we're talking about position, location, action, conditions, and emotions. So those are things that we usually can change or that are a little bit more temporary. So as you can see that even though they have the same meaning, these two verbs are going to be used in different situations. So let's recap what we were discussing. So we are talking about the verb estar and the verb ser. The meaning of those two verbs is the same, is the verb to be. So to be, I am, you are, he is, obviously in the conjugation of the noun that we're talking about. Number two, we are talking about the different conjugations of estar and ser. Conjugation. Okay, so we discussed the meaning over here and the conjugation over here. So we are not going to say, for example, something like she are, or I is, or I are, right? So it is even hard to think about using those verbs in the wrong way because we already know the right way to say it. In Spanish, it's going to be the same. Yo soy. I'm not going to say yo somos, right? So just keep an eye on those two verbs and their conjugation. Remember that we have to use the right conjugation if it's singular or if it's plural. Yo soy, yo estoy, tú eres, tú estás, and so on. So we were talking about the conjugation as well. And number two, the uses that we have for these two verbs, and something very easy to remember, or something that I can give you as a hint to remember these two verbs, is the acronym doctor and place. These are going to help you remember the situations in which we use one or the other one. As you can see, even doctor is related to occupation, a permanent or long-lasting characteristic of the noun, and place is related to the location of something, right, of a noun. So it is a little bit more temporary. So those are the two ways to remember how to use the verb ser, how to use the verb estar, and this is what I wanted to share with you guys today, because these two verbs are very important, and understanding the difference is the most critical thing to know when to use them correctly and how to use them correctly.